This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast. With
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, you're encouraged to like and share them on social media. Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie now presents the African American Scene with Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. And I am especially glad tonight because we dodged the bullet. And I am very grateful for that, and so should you be. Because our friends and neighbors in the Bahamas have gotten absolutely killed. I see some of those pictures and it looks like they were hit with a bomb. Let me share a little information with you. Thankfully, we were spared the wrath of Hurricane Dorian. Unfortunately, our neighbors in the Bahamas were not. There are many efforts to assist in their time of need. What we have here is the city of Stuart, as well as Operation 300 at Witham Field, are undergoing efforts to help some of our neighbors. The Dorian Bahamas Relief, in an effort to support the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the city of Stuart is collecting needed supplies to be transported to the Bahamas. The drop-off location is the Stuart Police Department, 830 Martin Luther King Boulevard, Stuart, Florida, 34994. And the collection started today, Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and it'll be tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Friday is Transportation Day. So you have tomorrow to get some supplies over there. For more information, you can contact Jim Charolski, City of Stuart, Florida, Community Service Director, 772-979-6015. Again, that's Jim Charolski, 772-979-6015. And they are looking for all kinds of things: toiletries, trash bags, tarps, first aid kits, non-perishable foods, flashlights, chainsaws, gloves, generators, extension cords, water, and cleaning supplies. So, if you are so inclined, please gather some supplies and get them over to Stuart. I would tell you, what a lovely place. I've been to Freeport like three or four times, and it is delightful. We're going to have another open mic, and I never finished my topics from last week, so I'm going to start where I left off. Actually, I finished up last week giving you my prescription for how to bridge the divide that seems to be separating us, and I will give you that again tonight. But where I left off, I was talking about the book, and if you want to call in, I welcome your comments. That number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. I am going to start back where I left off, which I was talking about the book that was written by Michael Kimmel, which is called Angry White Men. And he went across the United States interviewing white men to understand why they were upset with the current conditions of our country. And and he actually interviews, and in the book, he describes the interview that he had with various people. And I'm going to kind of summarize some of the things that he was able to develop in the process of doing this book. One of the things that people said to him in interviewing them across the country was multiculturalism is destroying America. Multiculturalism is destroying America. I kind of find that kind of interesting because I thought our multiculturalism was one of our strong points, but I do understand that to some people, multiculturalism is hurting our country. Now, you know, I don't know if you heard about it, but today they played a interview with a lady that owns a catering hall, and they were trying to rent the catering hall for an upcoming wedding. And when she found out that it was going to be a white-black wedding, she said she was unable to rent the catering hall to them because it was in defiance of her beliefs, her religious beliefs. That's all over the internet, and there's actually a short piece of the video where the person interviewed the lady, and you can see her declining to rent the facility due to the fact that the people getting married were white and black. Wow. One of the other things that came up in his book was America is no longer a white country, many feel. And that's very disturbing. And you've heard me talk about it before. And I know for some people, the browning of America is an issue that is very important to folks. Well, I have to tell you, and you've heard me say this before, you need to get over it because America was brown before it was white. That's not me making things up. That's an actual fact. America was brown before it was white. There were several parts of this country, as I've said before, so indulge me if you've heard me say this, like Texas and Arizona and New Mexico, they were a large part Mexican. So they've been here all along. You got some generations of Mexicans that have been longer here than any white folks, but they feel the country's being taken away. And what we have here is a replay of some of the things that we've seen in the past. Joseph McCarthy launched a vicious attack in the Congress when he accused people of being communists because he felt that was infringing upon what they believed the country to be. Although it turns out that that was an empty threat and ruined some people's lives in the process. And then, for those of you who are not old enough to remember, but I know most of my listeners are old enough to remember, when President Kennedy ran for president, there was an absolute terror that the Pope was going to take over America. So, and there was a very, very big concern from a lot of folks that if President Kennedy got elected as president, the Pope was going to take over America. Well, and you know how that turned out. That was a bunch of hooey. But again, that was one of those things that people believed. And we got Phil on line one. Yes, sir.
Hey, Rudy, how you doing? Glad to see you. Weathered the storm like most of us.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to call back last week because I wanted to mention something to you, a couple things real quick.
Okay.
There was I'm trying to remember what it was now, something to do with certain groups of people and so much percentage of white, so much percentage of black and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, where did we lose touch of the fact that we all got 2 arms and 2 legs and we all bleed the same color? Why do we have to be put into classes? And the other thing that bothers me is something you just mentioned a couple minutes ago about that wedding situation. And it was against the, what do you call it, the rental hall, or whatever you call it, the owner's religious beliefs. What kind of a religion, and we're talking about a religion, I assume, that worships God, okay?
Yeah.
Where did they come up with the idea that in the name of religion, we're not all equal? And you know, what kind of religion is that person practicing that teaches, prejudice like that? I don't get it.
Phil, I don't get. Maybe you can enlighten me a little bit. I can't help you with that because I don't understand that. Now, if this was the 1950s or 40s, I could understand that. But oh my God, I mean, how could you? This is 2019. You see white and black couples on TV commercials.
Oh yes, and I work with some myself. So
yeah,
hey.
My son's girlfriend is white. Really? What's the big deal?
I don't know. You would think this day and age it would be different, but I don't know. I can't believe that people would succumb to mainstream media and mainstream society that keeps beating this presidential divide into our heads. I don't know where they're getting it from. I just don't.
I think I know, because I have some very good friends of mine who I've had this discussion with, and some of it is the absolute terror of the idea that America will be brown.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they can do about this. It's going to happen.
Yep.
It's going to happen. So, it's funny how I have friends that have absolutely no concern about that at all. None.
Right.
And then you have others that are just terrified of that. Now, I don't know what they think is going to happen, just like if you think about when President Obama ran, I could tell you some of the emails I got were just absolutely stupefying. He's not going to put his hand on the Bible. He's going to use the Quran. Oh. And if you're not going to vote for McCain, why don't you just not vote? Because we will have Muslims in the White House.
Yeah.
Well, you heard all that crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. Yes. And you were talking about the browning of America right now. Everybody's so worried. Well, go way back, Rudy. Okay, we're talking 1800s.
Yes.
When the white men were apparently having relations with the native Indians. Okay, so that would be what, the redding of America?
The non-whiting of America.
Yeah, and then in the wars with the Japanese and everything. Are you kidding? I mean, the guys were coming back with Japanese wives and Vietnamese wives, and so on and so on. So now what are we saying? Oh, the yellowing of America? I mean, I thought America was everybody and not put into a color chart, for crying out loud.
Well, it's not. That is, to me, what makes us special. Is because we are that way.
The melting pot, Rudy.
Yes.
The melting pot. What happens in the melting pot? We blend.
Phil, I've said that, oftentimes growing up, my son would have a barbecue on the back of the house. And when I'd go to the window and look, there was every kind of kid you could think of.
Yes.
Haitians, Jews, Italians.
Oh,
They were all back there, and they were all having a good time. They were jumping in and out of the pool, laughing and eating food. And I would stand at the window, and I'd look and I'd go, man, I wish I could give this picture to the country, because there's nothing going on out there that would be bothering me at all. So I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I got some neighbors that are Jewish, and I don't know, a while back, and I can't remember, but some idiot made this smart comment. Sorry, Cliff, I almost said a curse word. You almost had to bleep me.
Nah, don't worry about it. I got plenty of time.
I know your fingers are waiting on the button.
No, you're all right. You're all right.
Some comments about cranking up the ovens, you know? And I was talking to my neighbors, and they are scared because they think, oh, what are we going to do? Have them come down the street now and go door to door and drag us out? I mean, this is ridiculous. Oh, wait, when does it end, you know?
I listen, I just hope saner minds prevail. That's what you have to hope for. And
Right, I know.
Fortunately, there are more people in this country like you and me than like those idiots. And we just have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for calling, Phil.
Okay, yes, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. You guys take care.
Okay, you too. All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
The browning of America, an intimidating factor?
Yeah.
I just say that is something that should be expected, you know, because, you know, we talk about America being a melting pot. You consider that's a blend of people that mix together, and yeah, even with families and such, until we all, I think we're all going to end up a little darker than I am and a little lighter than Rudy is.
Yes.
Maybe perhaps like the Egyptians look, perhaps.
I think so. I listen, it is inevitable, especially when you look in Port St. Lucie, which is a real melting pot. You live there now and you can see it. Everybody is with everybody there. It's just they don't have any of the hang-ups some of the older people have. And that's going to continue to grow, and that's going to continue to expand until the point where a lot of the stuff that people think and believe, like this woman who would not let them rent the hall because a black person was marrying a white person, that stuff will go away.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention the fact that there will be people, and I am really confident saying this, there will be people that will ostracize that facility for taking that stand.
Oh, yeah.
So, now, there's also, in the book, he finds that many feel that jobs have been taken from them that they rightfully deserve. I don't know about that, but okay. But that's another issue. And many see religious freedom as a part of the problem. And that's the one that really bugs me, because America was basically created because people sought religious freedom from what they were having to experience under England. So I don't get that, but okay, I understand that people may feel that way. And listen, that's the key. I don't have to agree, and in many cases I don't agree, but I should at least make the attempt to try to understand why, and I do try to understand why people feel that way. There is another perception that many saw the election of President Obama as the last straw. having an African American president by the name of Barack Obama deeply offended many of my white brothers and sisters. They just couldn't get over that. And the thing is with that, they didn't want to admit it. They still won't admit that that is an issue. They will say all kinds of other things of why they did not like him. And some people, I believe that's true. But for most, I think that's just a smokescreen, because they had a very difficult time accepting the fact that the leader of the free world was an African American. And I don't know why it was so hard for them to accept, because he was well respected and well received by all of our allies. Our allies were very much in favor and treated him with the utmost respect. But there you have it. That's part of what I think has caused a separation. And I'm going to give you my remedies again, and then we have a couple other topics we can talk about tonight. My remedies for bridging the gap. You have to have an open and honest conversation. If you are a person that does not like black people, you need to have a discussion with somebody that's black where you can speak honestly, so that there is an opportunity for them to deal with some of the feelings that you have about people of color. There is no other way to do it, because if you have those feelings, some of them are things that you've developed that have no basis in fact. So the way to deal with that is to talk to someone who will talk to you without hostility and enlighten you. Do not buy into conspiracy theories. That's another remedy. The conspiracy thing is really problematic, and I have something that I'm going to talk to you about a little later that's going to talk about that when I have a little survey about which media outlets are the most biased. Everybody in this country deserves a chance to succeed. That's not limited to white folks. Everybody has a right to succeed. And you know, while I'm on that, let me say something to you about this. Many countries offer free tuition for the members of their country, for their population. For example, Argentina, Australia, Brazil, but in Brazil, the classes are taught in Portuguese. Czech Republic offers free tuition. Egypt, Finland, France, and in France, free tuition is available to all EU citizens. Not only France, but all the members of the EU have an opportunity to have a college education, free tuition. Germany, Greece, Iceland, Kenya, and in Kenya, free public tuition for high-scoring secondary school students. Luxembourg, Malaysia, Morocco, Norway, Panama, Poland, Scotland, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, and Sweden makes it available to all European Union citizens, and the PhD programs in Sweden are free. Turkey and Uruguay. Now, all of those countries offer free tuition. So they're trying to help their population become successful. Can somebody tell me why we think that that is an abomination? Because most of the conservatives I know feel that offering free tuition is just absolutely horrible. Well, let me give you another piece of information if you didn't see it Sunday night. Sunday night on 60 Minutes, NYU now offers free tuition for medical school. How about that? Free tuition for medical school. Now, I will tell you, just because of the nature of who we are as people, if NYU is offering it, other schools will have to offer it because the best students will end up going to NYU where they don't have to come out with $100,000 of debt. Because going to medical school, it is not uncommon to come out with $100,000 to $125,000 worth of debt. So keep that thought in mind. And then we say we can't do that. I don't know why we can't do it. The country, I want you to stop doing this. The country does not belong to white folks. The country belongs to all of us. And you have to accept that fact. Now, things may not be the way they were in the 50s. And for me, I say thank God. But the country belongs to all the citizens here. We have all made contributions to where we are today. Now, while you may have some misgivings about trade, I want you to understand another thing about trade. Free trade reduces worldwide poverty. So that is a byproduct of free trade. And we have seen a reduction in worldwide poverty. I need you to consider building a relationship with somebody who is different than you. Try that. And you might be surprised because you may find out, as one person told me a long time ago, that, and he and I became good friends, he said, the one thing I learned from you is that you want all the same things for your kid that I want for mine. And I thought to myself, wow, why is that so surprising? But anyway, we got Jay on line one. Yes, Jay.
Hey, how you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
Good afternoon. Okay. No, something here. I wasn't going to call, but then I said I had to because a lot of folks kind of look. When they hear candidates talk about, like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, talk about the free tuition. How are we going to pay for it? But they could they could almost spend $1 trillion on the military. That's not a problem. For the war machine. But we can't worry about our kids. We don't care about how they survive, but they'll be down with paying off for the rest of their life or for that money to get into college. Now, I remember as a kid, as a youngster, in New York State, mainly in the 5 boroughs of New York City, if you lived in New York City back in the 50s and 60s, you went to college tuition free. All you had to pay for was your books.
CCNY.
That's all you had to pay for was just to get your books if you had the right grades when you came out of high school. You qualified, you got in, you go to NYU, Columbia, and all the top colleges there in New York City, and but you had to be a resident, to do that. But that was it. And these are folks that were making less. I tell you what, they were making half of what the income of people making now, and that nobody was crying because the federal budget, they didn't have to worry about money coming into the federal government because they were taxing millionaires 70 and 80%.
That's correct.
Of their income. And it all, was started back with Eisenhower when he built the interstate highway. These millionaires were paying almost 90%.
You're right.
So now they're getting this tax break. Just listen, I'll finish this real quick. Now they're getting this big tax break. They're making more money, and they're doing everything. they're lobbying in the Capitol, giving congressmen money to pass bills so they can pollute the air and kill all the animals and do everything. And it's going on and on and on. And look at this administration. They're changing everything with the EPA. They're destroying the EPA and destroying this environment. They want to cut down all the trees and all over the United States. And that's just part of what's going on. But getting back to education, it's not impossible. We have the will, and we want to make sure that the next generation gets an education, because it's the least of the. In other words, it should be that everybody should have access to quality education. But it seems like it's only going to be the privileged, and that's the way this country's going until we could change it in about a year and a half. And if we're smart enough, we will do that. But we got to make sure everybody's thinking and stop thinking about what color is going to be the majority of the people in this country. They get caught up on that. It's just kind of sad listening to that, but that's just a fact. That's just a reality. Well, that's about it, Rudy. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for calling in, Jay, my faithful listener. He's so right about the college tuition. Listen, I got a niece who went to UNC undergrad, and then she went to UNC graduate school. By the time she got out, she owed about $55,000, $60,000 worth of debt. Now, fortunately, my brother-in-law is not a poor man, so he's been able to help her. But how many kids? Now, she did everything right. Good high school student, great grades, undergrad, got her master's degree. $60,000 in debt? That's crippling. How do you go out on your own and be able to develop an individual life when you're shackled with that kind of debt? So I think that's the thing that makes that program at NYU, and I want you to hear it first from me, because you will see other medical schools will come up. Now, they created an endowment at NYU to do this. There will be other schools that will come up with the money to provide tuition-free medical school for students. Now, why? Here's the thing, and maybe some of you can call up and educate me. Why that so deeply offends people is beyond me. We are running into a doctor shortage. Everybody knows that. The hospitals talk about it. Other doctors talk about it. We need doctors. So why make it that a person that goes to medical school is crippled with debt to get that degree? Now watch how it all flows down. If you are crippled with that debt and somebody comes to you and they're on Medicaid, you don't want to treat them because you can't afford to take a patient for that low level of fee. And I understand that, because you got your loans you got to pay back. So you can't afford to treat somebody where you're only going to get a third of what you think you should get. But if you had no debt, then you're more inclined to be able to take care of that person that's on Medicaid. And finally, my final prescription for how we fix this. We have to get back to the 60s. You have to care about what happens to your fellow American. That is not such a foreign concept. That's part of what Phil was talking about a few minutes ago. You have to care about your fellow American. Sometimes we're very good if there's a storm coming. I saw people running around trying to help other people because the storm was coming, because they didn't want something to happen to them, or they want them to be prepared for the storm. The storm passes and all that goodwill dies. You have to care about your fellow American. You got to care about the kids that are in your neighborhood and be willing to help them. Not a novel thing, something we used to do, But we've become so self-centered and so selfish that it's now all about me and what I do and what I can get. And that's the primary driving factor today. Now, I'm going to say something else to you. Over the past few years, I've talked to you continually about the need to change our economic system, which usually gets great criticism from my conservative friends. But I'm going to give you the perfect example of why our economic system is so corrupt. 90%, okay, I'm going to repeat this again. 90% of Americans want some type of gun legislation. 90%. There's hardly anything in this country where you can get 90% of the people to say that they want to do something. 90%. But we can't get anything done. Now, you want to know why we can't get anything done? Because the members of Congress, too many of them are bought and paid for by the NRA. So because the NRA has bought and purchased them, they can't deliver what 90% of their constituents are asking them to deliver. And that is the corruption of our capitalist system. You've got people, this country is asking Congress to do something that they won't do for fear that they'll lose the funding of the NRA. That is sick. And that is a problem because they have ingrained themselves so much into our political system. Those people are afraid not to support what they want for fear that there will not be money coming into their coffers to help them run for election. That's not capitalism, folks. That's not capitalism. That's corruption. And I don't mind saying it. That's corruption. That's not capitalism. But that is how capitalism is operating in this country right now. And that's just one that I speak of now because it's so obvious that you can see it, that's happening. And I'm going to share something with you that I said earlier today on Facebook. If you'll recall, the black folks in Montgomery, Alabama, had a strike against the bus company. And they walked for over a year. They walked to work. They walked to school because they didn't like the way the bus company was treating them. So they made that sacrifice to not spend any money on that bus service. And you know what? It changed because those black folks not taking the bus crippled the bus company. So I'll tell you, there's an example for us to consider. We can do something about it, but it takes the collective we in terms of desire to make a change. And we got Chuck on line one. Yes, sir.
Hey, Rudy.
Yes,
How
sir.
you doing today?
Good.
Yeah, just on your RA rant. I sold rifles for 3 years. Nobody buys a rifle without going through a background check. It has the federal firearm 4473 form to fill out. It has to be spelled out. No initialing, no nothing. I cannot tell you the number of times I've had people redo the form 10 times because they don't pay attention. And then you just finally tell them no, We're not doing the sale today. Come back in another day. We'll try it again. You cannot, in the state of Florida, go from St. Lucie County to Martin County and buy a rifle or a shotgun. It will not be done. You have to do it. The address on your form has to be the same address as on your driver's license. And if it's not in the state, in the county from which you're purchasing from, you cannot purchase it from it. Right now, the firearms industry is the most regulated. It has the most laws on the books. You can look them up, Google them, check them all out. And you can, and I tell you right now, meaningful, what does that mean? Meaningful background check. I've had people decline. I've had a retired major from the Florida Highway Patrol come in to buy a rifle. I went and I did his background check. That was the scariest moment of my life because the person on the other end said, "Is he standing there in front of you now?" And I said, "Yes." Well, he is not allowed to buy a weapon. When you're turned down by these people, and the lady told me, she said, "Hang up, call 911 right away." You give them a form. They have to fill it out. It has to go to FDLE so that they can find out why they were turned down. We don't do anything about it. Where I was working at, we always had 4 people in the section. 2 people always watched the arms sale. One person conducted the sale. The second person watched anybody else around them. If at any time anyone came up and said something to them, we stopped the sale. That was federal law. They could not buy a weapon. And in other words, you could also watch a person, tell somebody, point out a weapon, and then another person come up to buy the weapon. You shut it down. There are laws on the book. What needs to be done is there needs to be a uniform background check through all agencies in the United States. The NRA has no problem with that. I am not a member of the NRA. I don't own a weapon. I don't need a weapon. I'm telling y'all, this crap that's being passed around is exactly what it is.
Well, Chuck, let me say this to you. I accept all of your information as being an expert, and I'm not going to question that, but I'm going to ask you this. Why do we need to sell an AR-15 or AK-47? Can you tell me why we need to sell those?
Why do you need to deny it?
Why do we need
Why do you deny somebody buying? You know, you realize it's not an assault weapon. It is a semi-automatic weapon that fires more than one round. By the premise that an assault weapon, you can fire more rounds than one at a time, then you make a .22 rifle an assault weapon because you can fire up to 17 rounds in a .22 because it doesn't have a magazine, because it doesn't look like an M16 or an AK-47. It is still, by the terminology that's being put out, it is an assault rifle.
But my question is that there's no difference in how I feel whether it's a .22 or AK. Why do we need that? Let me ask you the question though. Is that a hunting rifle? Are we gonna? You would tear a deer to shreds if you shot it with an AR-15. So what are we?
You could do the same thing with a 30-06 if you hit it wrong.
Okay,
It's
but
no
what? So why
different.
do we?
Rudy, listen. You are going on the shape of the weapon. A 30-06 if you hit a deer in the wrong place, you're going to.
No, I'm not going on the shape of the weapon. You know what I'm going on?
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. Now, you can't tell me what is making me.
You didn't tell me.
No,
you didn't start
can't,
off with a bold action.
You can't tell me what is helping me form my opinion about this. Now, I will tell you what is helping me form my opinion about an AR-15 or AK-47. What has me form that opinion is doctors who have talked about the destruction to people that have been hit by one of those weapons. That is what has shaped my opinion about those. Not the shape of the weapon, it's the destruction from that weapon.
Do you realize that the round you fire from an M15 is a lower grain than from an M16?
Okay.
Do the doctors tell you that? No, they don't.
Well, but
you
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm telling you, you're basing it. How can I put this? People are basing it on pictures.
No, I just told you what I was basing it on. Now, you can choose.
And I'm telling you the difference.
You can choose to not believe that's what I'm basing it on. That's your right.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I'm telling you the difference between the M16 round and the AR-15. There's no M15. It's an AR-15.
Okay.
There is no AK-47 that you can legally buy except a knockoff copy. Either difference is a semi-automatic. You fire as many rounds as your finger will squeeze the trigger. That is what the guy in the Walmart did. He didn't have a bump action like the guy in the hotel room that was killing other people. They did away with that. Good idea. But the thing is, there is a semi and there is a safe and an on switch on an AR-15. There is a safety, there is a semi, and there is an automatic. The 5.56 round has a higher grain power than the 226 M or the AR-15.
I gotta let you go, Chuck. I got another caller. But thank you for calling and thank you for educating us. And we got John on line one. Yes, John. Yes, John.
Hey, John.
John, are you there?
John, you wanted to talk?
Hey, Rudy.
Yeah, how you doing?
Turn your radio down, all the way down, because you're messing up the broadcast.
Well,
yeah, you got a delay there.
Okay. You there?
Do you have a question or comment for the show? You've got about 5 seconds. You better start talking. 3.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Well, do you know that the AR-15 was invented in Palm City, Florida, and the actual nomenclature of it is Armalite rifle, and it was originally chambered for .223, and when it got to Vietnam, it was absolutely useless. Then they busted up to .556, and there's also one that fires a .762. But the whole thing, to answer your question, why does anybody need one of those rifles in civilian hands? They don't. It's as simple as that. The other part is the whole discussion about gun control. It's not gun seizure. But the fact is, and then, let's go back to 1619. The original Second Amendment was written to round up escaped slaves. But nobody wants to ever talk about that. And they also never want to talk about well-regulated militia. That doesn't mean every moron gets to be Rambo. It's as simple as that. Just licensing, strict and real background checks where you don't get to just walk in and buy one just like you got to take a driver's ed course, you should have to take a really serious. Now, that percentage of 90% say they want it, about 18% of those would actually get out and do something about it. That goes back to your me thing.
Yeah.
And we just don't have either the social will or the backbone to stand up to this corporate sleaze. And I have another thing about it, that what America exports is death wholesale. We have killed millions and millions of people since World War II to make the arms merchants richer. That's what we're the best at. They found better and faster ways to kill people, and we still haven't cured cancer, and we still got hunger and stuff that's going on. But there's a certain diehard group, and it goes into the profit over life gangs.
There you go.
That a child's life is not as important as some homosexual lunatic who wants to walk into Target carrying a rifle. And I thought Viagra was the answer to that, but it doesn't seem to be.
Oh.
You're right, and you know it's funny if you look.
So I don't know, Rudy. I swear to you, it's like, you know, we're really. Did you see the thing with the pastors' wives having a gunfight in the parking lot of their church?
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
What are we talking about here?
Oh,
what
geez.
are we really talking about?
What have
the
we become?
President of the United States alters a hurricane map to go along so he doesn't have to admit that he made a mistake.
That is.
What kind of crazy stuff is this? And all of this other nonsense about my constitutional right. Well, guess what? You don't have a Fourth Amendment right anymore, and you very rarely have a Fifth Amendment right.
Yeah.
You know, the search and seizure.
Yeah.
And the other things that we're supposed to be protected by, you know, they just come as they please. So I don't know, bro. I swear to you, I don't. I think unless we have, there's a Greek word. It's called metanoia, and metanoia means change of heart. Unless we have a change of heart in this country, we're all going to hell in a handbasket.
Thank you, John.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that.
That's a good way to finish there. Metanoia. I learned something new tonight. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's and listen, that's back to what I was saying in my prescription. That's part of what we do. We have to have a change of heart. I do think, as we're closing out the show tonight, I do think we are starting to touch the soul of some people. They're beginning to see the need to make a change. And if I'm right, when this next election, there's going to be a landslide of a vote when it comes to President Trump. But we'll have to wait to see if that happens. But in any event, I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in to the African American scene. God bless and be safe, and I'll see you next Wednesday right here for the African American scene.
Archives of this show, The African American Scene, can be found on YouTube. Look for WPSL TV on YouTube and enjoy the archives of The African American Scene with Rudy Howard Wednesday nights on WPSL Port St. Lucie. It's one of the many reasons why we're the talk of the Treasure Coast and celebrating over 25 years and counting.